So here's what we're going to cover today on the webcast. We're going to get it through. We're going to start a little unorthodox, but I think that listening to you speak over the years, Art, the battery is really, sort of the hub, if you will, of the unit, right? Without a functioning battery, I don't think you're going very far. So we're going to start with that today. And I got a special guest that I'm excited to introduce to you that's going to go through and share some of all of his experience with you and just some really good tips on what you need to do to make sure you're storing your battery properly. So when you come to fire it up and fire up your rig next year, everything is good to go.
Good morning, gentlemen.
JC. How you doing?
Doing good, gentlemen. I hope everyone out in Canada is having a good Saturday morning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to discuss and we're going to pick your brain here a little bit, JC, on the whole battery thing. Because if you're like me, I'm sort of saying, I don't see it. I think it's okay. I'll just, it'll work next year. But I guess that's not the right way.
Well, you know what? The battery is really what sets you apart from being a tent. Come on, let's have the essential systems, and our battery is crucial to that. And everyone assumes it's like their car. They're just going to throw it, back in the back 40, park it for the winter, and it's going to be fine come spring. And that just leads for a really fun open up come springtime.
Right. So is this a complicated mess, or can a DIYer do it? Can someone says, hey, I just want to do it myself? Is it a simple thing to do? And if it is, what are some things they should be doing?
I really hope that people learn how to look after their battery, because getting your dealer to look after every little bit is tough. Your battery does require maintenance every spring and fall. And you know what? We're going to walk through it today and show you how anybody can do this. Pull it aside, store it properly so you have a good battery come next year. One of the biggest questions I get asked every spring, and it is literally a phone call every 5 minutes in May, is how do I wire my batteries back up? It starts now. When you're taking your batteries out, before you even disconnect a single wire, take a couple of good pictures of how it is set up right now. It helps you determine what is working, what is not. A simple step that a lot of people miss. But once you have all the wires noted and when they're going, this is when we can start disconnecting the batteries. Quick little note here, guys. Try and use a wrench that has a protected end, or tape off the end of your wrench just as you're spinning those nuts off. I've seen it over and over where guys will arc against the negative or they'll arc against a sidewall. It's just safer to tape it off or use a protected wrench. But we're going to take all the connections off. This is a good time to also clean them up, scrape them down, make sure your connections are clean.
Okay. And what do you do that with? Just with like a brush or soap and water? Or
you want to use a wire brush if it's really, really built up there, and baking soda is really good because that'll actually neutralize any acid up there.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
Now, on your contacts, after you've disconnected everything, I like to tape up the positives all covered up so that it can't accidentally touch anything metal on the RV. And the reason why I do this is if you don't have the batteries in and then you go and back the truck up and you plug in to say run the jack or run the lights, if this contact arcs against something, it's going to spark and it's going to blow a breaker. So if you tape them off, it's not a concern. You don't have to think about it even if you plug the RV in itself. One other quick note, when you're taping off the positives, make sure if you have a roof-mounted solar panel, I like to tape that lead off separate from the rest of the positive leads. Now, the reason why I do that is if you do have enough sun and all the leads are connected together and touching, sometimes the propane detector will get enough power to actually start beeping away at you. So if you just tape it separately, but maybe tape it to the rest of the positive bundle, it keeps them all marked together.
There you go. There's a great tip and a trick. Perfect. All right. Now we got all our wires taped. Now what are we doing next?
Well, let's pull those batteries out. Let's put them on a bench somewhere easy to work on them. I want you to get a flathead screwdriver. I want you to get anything flat that we can pop the top of the batteries off. Now, please know what type of batteries you have. Most of us are going to have what's called a flooded battery. That's very common, been around forever and a day. But if you have a new style AGM or a gel battery, you will not be able to remove the tops, and there is no maintenance. So disregard what we're talking about right now. But on a flatted battery, that's what 99% of you are going to have. Pop these caps off and take a boot down in the battery. you're going to see a bunch of plates standing up and you're going to see a fluid covering them. And what you want to make sure is that that fluid is above the plates, but below the collar of the inspection hole. Too often people get in there and they'll see, oh, my plates are dry. Well, unfortunately, you've done some damage to your battery. So checking this fluid level should definitely be done at least twice a year. The fall is a good time, and spring for sure. Double check those fluids before you put the battery back on. If you do need to top it up, you can get distilled water from Walmart, Canadian Tire, anywhere. Just top it up with distilled water, but just make sure not to overfill it, or when you charge it, you are going to have a whole bunch of water come up on top of the battery and leave a mess for you. There are a few people here in the chat box. I like that, under your bed, that sort of thing. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
A bunch of people are talking about storing it on wood versus storing it on concrete. And there's a lot of different opinions on that. So I'm going to leave that to everyone in their own. Let's just say a lot of the old school guys store their batteries on wood. Fine and dandy, you aren't hurt nothing, keep on doing that. But where you want to store them, you want to store them in a well-ventilated area. So a garage is ideal, but for those of you that don't have a garage, some people will use their basement, but it has to be well ventilated, guys, because gas does come off these batteries when they are being charged aggressively. The other thing to consider, please don't mount it underneath your grinder or beside your furnace. When batteries do off gas, that is actually an explosive gas, essentially. So just keep it away from those items. Because we do want to make sure you're safe, and we want to be able to charge this battery. So let's just find somewhere safe to do it within your home. It does not have to be a fully heated area if we're going to be charging the battery. But if you cannot charge the battery all winter, it has to be warm. Let's just keep that in mind.
So JC, are they charging the battery before they store it if they are not planning on charging it during the winter? So
that is absolutely ideal.
Okay.
Yeah, if a fully charged battery, deep cycles are not like your cell phone. They are not lithium ion. These batteries actually prefer to be fully charged more often than not. So whenever you're storing these batteries, make sure they are fully charged. Ideally, I would rather have the battery on a trickle charge all winter, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. So if you can charge it all winter, I want you to take out your batteries. A lot of us have multiple batteries. Some of us have single, but take those batteries out, store them on a shelf, store them in the basement, wherever you feel is best, but wire them like you had them wired in the motorhome. So out here in Western Canada, we very commonly use 6-volt batteries. So we have 2 of those we have to wire together to make 12 volts. I want these to be wired together so they're at 12 volts, so that we charge them together at 12 volts, not 6 volts. And the reason why is these batteries are brother and sister. We want them to discharge at the same rate, and we want them to charge at the same rate. Makes sense. Everyone got that one?
That's a great point. Great point.
You betcha. So once we have them wired together at 12 volts, you do not need a fancy battery charger. You need just a very straightforward, a battery charger that'll do 12 volts at 2 amps. There are a number of different ones that are under $40 that can do that for you. And if you plug it in and leave it charging all winter at 2 amps, that is not a high draw. You aren't even going to notice it on your power bill, but you're keeping that battery topped up, and you're actually going to get longer life out of those batteries. One of the questions here was asking, the garage is not heated, so is that going to have an impact? And no, if a battery is fully charged, it cannot chemically freeze. I repeat that again. Everyone gets misconception. If fully charged battery is fully charged, it cannot freeze. It's when that battery discharges that it can freeze. So if you do have an unheated garage, but you have this battery being charged all winter, please don't worry about it. Your batteries are going to be perfectly fine. Your batteries are stored. They're in the garage. They've got to charge. Those are looked after. The other ones you need to think about are all the small batteries that you have in your smoke detectors, your CO detectors, in your remotes, any of those small little batteries. Let's go around and pull them right out of the RV. But for those of you that see down at the floor, that propane detector on the floor that we all have, please don't spend hours trying to find the batteries for that.
There is
That it does not have any batteries. That is actually run off of the unit's batteries. So you've already removed them. Those by law have to be hardwired into the RV batteries. So please don't waste a whole bunch of time looking at that. But if you are looking at your detectors, this is a good time to check their date codes as well. A lot of people don't realize that all of these detectors have expiry dates and a lifespan. And it might come as a shock and a surprise to some RVers, but you might have a 2016 RV that might have a 2014 or a 2015 detector. It is a good time to note this when you're pulling batteries, and note that 10 years out from there, you are going to have to change out those detectors.
Right, right. Isn't that an issue when people are buying used units?
All the time, and it's something that isn't talked about enough. This is the device that makes sure that you and your family are safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and you could even carry that one point further because it also applies to detectors in our homes.
Amen. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? The number one we get here, we do a lot of solar panels out here at Bucars RV. Like a good 3/4 of our units have solar panels on the roof these days. And everyone says, okay, JC, you said a fully charged battery cannot freeze. I have a solar panel. It's going to be charged all winter. And you know what? Technically, you're correct. But we all need to remember that we're Canadian. We've got this liquid rain that turns solid in the winter called snow. And a solar panel will not charge under snow. So if you keep that in mind, those solar panels are not putting a charge out. Your batteries are being drained. Even if you have a disconnect, your batteries are being drained by your propane detector. After about 2 weeks, they're dead. You've got some split batteries. And when you come into JC in the spring and say, I want to claim warranty on these batteries that are split, it's a rough day for me and you. We don't have fun conversations that day.
Yeah. So doesn't that come back to my earlier point? Preventative, right? Let's prevent. So you put in a little effort today and it pays off tomorrow.
You betcha. And that's actually something that we're talking about today here at Bucars. And about, well, at 11 o'clock Western time, we do a whole free seminar where we talk about all the things you need to do to get your RV winter storage ready. Too many people look at these RVs and assume they're a car. Park it in the driveway, turn the key, go, get an oil change done every 5,000-10,000 and you're fine. Unfortunately, RVs are not there. RVs are a house that bounces down the road. There is maintenance involved. And if you have any questions, please hit any one of your RV care dealers. We're all trained to be able to let everybody know exactly what they need to do to look after their investment, because these things, a lot of the time for most people, are the second most expensive item they're ever going to purchase in their life next to their house. So Please do maintenance, look after your seals, look after your batteries. And the boys that have this webinar today are going to walk you through all that.
That's awesome stuff, JC. I'm sure a lot of people, man, there's a lot of chat going on. I don't know if I missed any questions, Art. I hope you're eyeballing this.
Yes, so I've answered a couple here, but I just wanted to bring up a couple of points.
Well, the one I can see right now is Paul. Paul's asking about no maintenance batteries. He's probably talking about AGMs or gel batteries.
Right.
And with the AGMs, where they've kind of stepped out over the last couple of years, is they will not freeze till minus 50. Now, minus 50 sounds
where's
like a
that?
number.
Saskatchewan?
We hit it. We came darn close last winter. So an AGM or a gel battery will not freeze. But my advice to these people are to still pull those batteries out and charge them, because one of the big quirks with an AGM or a gel battery is if you do leave them in and they get fully discharged, they go into what's called a negative state. So come the spring, you're going to hook everything up. Your battery is fine. It hasn't been frozen or anything, but you have no power. You turn on your charger, still no power. An AGM or a gel battery is like a human heart. If it goes dead, you need to give it a shock. And unfortunately, it's a lot. You need to give it anywhere from 40 to 60 amps for about 5 minutes. And what that's going to do is it's going to force that AGM battery into a positive state. And once it's in a positive state, it's going to work normally. You haven't done any damage, But we get a lot of that in the spring here too. Everyone's saying you sold bad batteries. These AGMs are dead. We put them on the charger at 60 amps for 5 minutes. They're perfectly fine. So I do prefer to see those charged. Then you don't go through all that in the spring. So I hope that helps with your question there, Paul.
Just one other point relative to that question. There's quite a lot of the dual purpose RV and marine batteries that are supposedly, that are maintenance free. You cannot access that, but they do contain the lead acid formula and will freeze, correct?
No maintenance batteries when you get into the AGM and gels. Any battery that has a standard flooded lead acid inside, those ones there should be serviceable. When you're talking no maintenance, you are talking AGM or gel. If well maintained, Elaine is talking about well maintained deep cycle batteries. What's the life expectancy? And what a lot of people don't realize is these are deep cycle batteries that are measured by cycles. So what that means, a brand new battery, a good quality, brand new deep cycle battery, on average, you can cycle it from 100% to about 30%. You can do that 600 times. Now, when we talk about a well-maintained battery, I like to talk about a battery that's charged more often than not. Because that 600 cycles on your average deep cycle battery for your average RVer, that's probably about 3 to 4 years you can expect out of reasonable life expectancy. But if you can keep that battery charged 60% and higher, you've gone from 600 cycles to 2,400 cycles. You keep that battery 80, 90% and higher, you're now talking 32 to 6,400 cycles. You're now getting closer to 10,000. So to give you an idea, I have a solar panel on the roof of my RV. I had 2 6-volt batteries. I got 9 years out of my last bank. But that's because those batteries never got discharged more than 15, 20%. So I hope that helps with your question there, Elaine.
Yeah.
Great points.
Carol's asking about just starting her motorhome once a week and let the vehicle run to charge batteries. Really, where she is in Victoria, they do not get a lot of the high freezing that you got to worry about as much. But I mean, starting the motorhome every week or so, is going to put a pretty aggressive charge back into your batteries. It is going to top them up. But keep in mind, depending on your motorhome, sometimes that propane detector can kill those batteries within 2 weeks. And I mean, if you do get that cold snap within those 2 weeks, you might have some trouble. So, I mean, my honest answer is always pull your batteries, safe than sorry. If you've got a motorhome or a fifth wheel where it's really hard to remove the batteries, talk to your RV care dealer about getting AGMs that don't need to be removed as much because they won't freeze till -50. They're going to hold up better in that situation.
Very good.
Great point.
On that note, JC, we as you said, we have 75 dealers across the country that are all trained, and we introduced, I don't know how many years ago now, our proprietary brand of batteries called Traveler's Choice, and we really call it the RV battery. So a lot of the other batteries out there, I think, Art, you just touched on it. They're dual purpose batteries, right? So they're more of and if you don't need the I don't know what the percentage is, 30% cranking, and you got a travel trailer, and that's why we went with the deep cycle battery. But on that note, JC, I know you've got another a busy day ahead of you, and you got a schedule that you're trying to maintain. I'm looking at the time here, so listen, just a huge thank you to you for your time this morning and your wealth of knowledge. I think a lot of people got their questions answered, which was the objective here on the battery stuff.
One other quick note.
I
just should mention this. A lot of people are going to say, how do I maintain the battery I have on my trailer or my motorhome? If you are using a car battery in your trailer, your best maintenance you can do for yourself is to just bring it into an RV care dealer and let us give you scrap credit for it and get you a real battery, because that car battery is going to let you down in the long run.
There's no doubt. And that's a perfect segue to my next our next section here. JC, listen, thank you again for everything. Enjoy the balance of your busy day, my friend.
Sounds good. Have a great day, Canada.
There we go. There goes JC, folks.
Hey,
Derek, just a ton of knowledge.
Derek, I'd just like to add a couple of other pointers here for the group. As usual, when we talk batteries, the chat box is just overflowing with questions and comments and whatnot, and they're all great questions. But I just wanted to point out to everybody that the RV Care Network has gotten together with a very high quality battery manufacturer, and it's branded under our own internal brand, RV Traveler's Choice. And there's lots of great information about batteries and the RV Traveler's Choice battery systems on our website at rvcare.ca.
Perfect. Yep.
Yep.
You're right. There's a ton of stuff on there. So if that's if you need more information, please go on there and have a gander. And JC was just talking about the scrap batteries, and we've been talking about this, Art, for I don't know how long, about how we'd love to see our industry do more with from, I'll call it, a Go Green initiative, and who better than this industry to really step up and do more. And he was talking about, and if you have a car battery in your RV, and or if you've got some batteries in your garage, you just can't throw them out on the side of the curb. You got to properly take care of the environment. We don't want these things piling up in landfills. So on our September retail event, which starts today, we've got a whole section here on basically how you can recycle. I was laughing with you yesterday, Art, about how the taglines are always about 100%, but it really is. It's in the high 90s. I'd like to know what the point percentage is that you can't recycle, but basically the whole thing you can recycle. And you made an interesting comment to me yesterday, how recycling of batteries is nothing new. This is something that's been going on forever, right? So you don't want to be storing those batteries out in the backyard and them piling up. It's a really, really good initiative, and all of our dealers will be happy to properly dispose of that. All right, so here's a question for you, everybody. Let me see if you can get the answer. An RV should be considered in storage when it's not in use for 2 weeks, 2 months, or 6 months. 2 weeks, 2 months, or 6 months. So what do you think? You should consider your RV is now in storage when you haven't used it for 2 weeks, 2 months, or 6 months. Jean-François Dugas says 2 weeks. Elaine says 6 months, 2 weeks, 2 months. Cam Lucier, 2 months. Alain, 2 months, 6 months, 75. Mirko, 75 what? Days? Years? 2 months. Monique, merci, 2 mois. All good. The right answer is 2 months. All right, so let's get into what we want to look at here and some tips and tricks for them. Let's talk about what they should be looking at on their roof, their sidewalls, or slide outs, give them some tips and some ideas on what they should be considering, and then some other considerations. So some interior items, maybe the propane systems, and some more tips and some more tricks. So obviously, I think the first thing, sorry about that, got a quick finger here, is always cleaning, right? That's the part I hate the most, but I think it's important that if you're going to be looking, especially on your roof, if you're going to start with your roof and you're going to be looking for any type of drying out of seals or any of that, it's kind of hard to see if there's a bunch of guck up on the roof. So cleaning is always where you want to start. Fair enough, Art?
Absolutely.
All right. So you want to do that, and then you want to look at this particular image. I mean, I can't believe the stuff you can put on a roof, but it looks like you've got a lot of options up there that could create a problem for you if you're not taking care of it.
Any place there is a penetration by a screw or fixture in an RV, sidewall or roof, that has the potential to leak. They have seal there, so sealant, and it's something that should be inspected fairly regularly, because many service departments across the country in the RV industry will attest to the fact that frequently there's broken hearts come springtime because those things weren't adequately inspected and something failed. Yeah. Very heartbreaking and expensive at times.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Very
so
important.
How often should they go up there? Should they go up and be looking at this throughout the summer? Definitely at the end before they're putting it away.
Again, it often depends on the weather conditions that you're involved in. If you're in extreme winds and hail and rain and that type of thing, you're going to be wanting to inspect it a little bit more often. But for fair weather RVing and fair weather situations, probably the spring, the fall, and once or twice during the season.
Yep, that's good.
Yep.
Hey, Art, JF is asking if you can walk on the roof of your travel trailer if there's no ladder.
That's a question that comes up time and time again.
Uh-huh.
And the answer to that is many of the modern RVs do have sufficient enough structure up on the roof for walking on, but not all. And the best advice I can give is if you feel a little bit of some give or some cushion kind of feeling in your feet when you're up there, you might want to try to stay closer to the edge of the RV where there's a lot more strength in the structure there. So keep that.
Where you also can fall.
You can. Yes, you can. And that's something we all need to keep in mind too.
No, absolutely. Got to be careful of that. All right. So the same logic, I'm assuming here, Art, applies with your sidewalls and all your slide outs and your doors as the roof, right? You're just looking at are you looking predominantly, if I'm looking at this stuff, moldings, and you're afraid of it drying out? Is that what you're looking for? Cracking?
Yep. Drying out, cracking,
tears.
Yeah. Any kind of mildew, that type of thing that's building up. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all stuff that you can see with your eye.
Typically, yes, but not always.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
And that's where it gets really tricky, is trying to determine if there's any underlying issues. But we'll talk about a couple of different ways that we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here we're looking at slide outs, and it's that's one of the issues that, in my mind, is pretty important to keep a close watch on, because the seals and gaskets are very critical on those slide outs. And there is a variety of different types of products that will keep those slide out gaskets pliable, right? Yeah. So just about every RV care dealer would carry those in stock, and they would be able to advise you more further on that. And if you ever need to repair or replace those slide out gaskets, they can be pretty expensive to do. So something you want to keep a watch on. Watch for tears and stiffness, brittle, that type of thing. Okay.
Yeah. So these are your these are your secret hiding spots, waiting for trouble to happen, right?
Absolutely. This is a pretty easy and quick way to check to see if there may be potential water damage.
Yeah.
And the corners of every RV are one of the weaker points. So it's very important to keep a watch on those in the corners.
Yeah.
So in this particular picture, you can see on the right are nice, bright, shiny screws.
Yep.
That look great. And I wouldn't expect any problem with that kind of situation. But on the left, the bottom screw looks fine.
Yeah.
But look at the top screw. That's rusty.
Yeah.
Yep. Normally the rust comes from the inside out.
Oh. Okay.
So imagine what you got in there. You've got some deterioration in that structure. Quite likely, but not necessarily. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that applies throughout, throughout the sidewalls and roof of the RV. If you see these rusty screws, unless you have a particularly old RV, just have a look. It could be a warning sign. You might want to take it into a service department or do some kind of a cursory inspection.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, these little guys like to get in as well. So always a good idea to make sure that if there's what's the size of a gap that one of these little critters can get in? It's pretty small, right?
I think the size of a quarter or some darn thing. I don't know how that happens.
So again, just be mindful of all of that stuff. And I can see the guys in the chat are having a whole different conversation on sealants. And Denise, thank you for piping in. It's always good to.
She says waking up her baby.
Yeah, her rig is what she's talking about, I'm assuming, right? Yeah, and again, we just said it before. Be careful if you're going to climb those ladders and you're going to go up there. If you're walking by the edges, always make sure that you're aware of that. So Art was just talking about there are RV care dealers that have all the products that you need to make sure that your seals are good. So the cleaning products that you need to make sure that you take all that dust and grime and everything that's been deposited via the weather over the course of the season, just make sure you can clean it all up and you can see what's going on up there. You want to remember that you're for sealants, there's cleaners and there's waxes and all those stuff. Like all the RV care dealers have all of that stuff available. And in our flyer that's on right now, we put together what we call our Supreme RV kit, which basically gives you literally a 20-liter pail, which can be used to wash, right? So all of these products come in the pail. They give you the washcloths and all the products that you can think of that you really need. It's sort of a one product fits all kind of thing. And you can buy all these products individually as well. So that's on sale at most of our dealers right now through the end of October. So if you got the flyer, you'll see it all in there. Other little tips and tricks, Art, that we might seem to forget. It's about the security of it. Once you're going to leave it, if you're putting it in an open field, or I don't know where you store it at the site, and or even beside your home, I guess it's always a good idea to consider locking it up.
Yeah, and before we discuss that, I just one point with the last slide that you had there.
Yeah.
And that is that there are a lot of very high quality, excellent cleaning and polishing products that are exclusively designed for the types of finishes found on RVs.
Yeah.
And we highly recommend to check with your RV Care dealer.
Yep.
Because as you saw on the previous slide, there's so many different types of products available, and you're not going to walk into any of the box stores and find some universal type of a cleaner or wax that's going to do anywhere near as good a job. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
And then with regards to safety, security, theft devices. Unfortunately, it's kind of one of these things that just happens in our world today, that there's thieves out there. So we do need to take precautions. Many of us have a lot of money tied up in our RV investments, and we want to ensure that they're still there in the springtime, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And whether it's a motorized product or a towable product, there's a variety of different products in the marketplace for that security.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's always a good thing to do. And then there's other elements that you can buy in singles. I call them singles. So your air conditioning, if you want to put a cover on that, it's always a good idea. Again, the winter conditions, depending where you are, rain, all that stuff is going to get into it. It's a good idea to cover that up. You can equally put a windshield cover on. And I'm assuming, Art, that's always good for stopping the sun from getting in there and fading everything in the cab of your unit.
Absolutely, for motorized products, you bet.
Yeah, that's a good idea to do that. And then equally the tires. Again, people always consider, what do I need to protect the tires for? And I guess, the battery and tires are pretty important, aren't they?
Yes, and a little known fact about the tires. Most RVs, if they ever do have to replace tires, it's not because of worn treads, it's because of sidewall UV damage.
Yeah.
Very important to know.
Yeah. So it looks like we got a lot of home remedies going on in the chat box on how to keep rodents out. Everything from bounce, it looks like bounce dryer sheets to, I like this one, Kelly, that's pretty good. What did Kelly say? Like peppermint oil or something? And Brian's saying, what about Flex Seal? Like from that guy Mike Swift here with Flex Seal. Yeah, I guess they're all good. They've all tried them and they work. A lot of old grandma's remedies still work today.
They do. They do.
Absolutely, they do. So I think all of those things are good. And to Art's point, I've spoken and speak daily to a lot of our parts managers, and I ask them this question all the time. And literally, there is so many different answers to that question. And some believe, a rodent that you might have in your neck of the woods would not be the same infestation of rodent in somebody else's neck of the woods. So sometimes, maybe a rodent where I live would love that peppermint oil stuff, who knows, or a dryer sheet. So it's a little bit crazy. But, again, the RV Care dealer has that. And there was another question there on crystals for absorbing. We're going to get to that in a second. So you're ahead of us. That's awesome. But I want to just share with you here a great feature. Some of you are joining us here this morning because you received the invitation on your app. And the app really, to me, is you can be everywhere now, right? It's in the palm of your hand. It's in your pocket. And if you download the RV Care app, then you're just going to, be abreast of everything that RV Care is doing with all our retail events and these types of invitations. We got a lot of other stuff that we're going to introduce in 2020. So we're super excited about it. But the main features right now are, if you are planning on heading south for the Canadian winter, good on you. I'm jealous. it's a great idea to download the app and have it. That way you can find all of our priority RV dealers along the way, and or if you need a place to stop, KOA are more than happy to give you their friendly hospitality. And, and they're all over KOA, all over Canada and all over the US. So that's an awesome partner that we have there, and our Canadian dealers will help you out as well. And when you accept the notifications, I believe it's in the preferences, then you just get a ping, you get a push notification that when the events are going on. And then new of this year, which we basically soft launched, but it's up now, is what we call our RVC Loyalty Rewards Program. And it's all about you, us showing our appreciation to all of you that are loyal to going into the RV Care dealers and asking for expert advice and taking advantage of the product specials that we have during the course of the year. It's always a cool thing. And you can download the app if you don't already have it on the App Store and or on Google Play if you're one of those. So what I thought, so another tip here, obviously, again, common sense, take care of the exterior, and the interior basically takes care of itself. So Art, we were talking about before how some single items they can buy, like just to cover the air conditioner and the windshield on your motorized, and some covers and the blinds. Actually, you don't really need to do any of that, because this could be costly, couldn't it be, if you're buying them as individual pieces? I mean, it adds up.
$150 to $200, quite likely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the idea here, so here's a little question for you. I could have made this a quiz. So what's the absolute best solution to protect your entire RV, including the interior? So the ADCO covers, basically it is a sort of a one-stop solution, if you will, because it's going to stop your unit, obviously, from I don't know if anything can stop the total brunt of weather conditions, depending where you are geographically in Canada, but it's going to take you a good part of the way, right? It's going to,
that's right.
Yeah, it's going to help a whole bunch. So leaves create havoc, right, when they're falling on your rig.
Yes, and a couple of points I'd just like to make at this time, and I've seen this come up in the chat box a few times already, but we do have people talking about the tarps that you can pick up at the box stores and stuff for whatever, $20, $30 or something like that. And I would have to say that almost every expert in the RV industry would say, no, please, no plastic tarps. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But in many parts of the country, where we do get freezing weather, the disadvantage to a plastic tarp is it will always build up moisture between the tarp and the roof, because it does not breathe.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that can cause all kinds of problems, especially in freeze thaw conditions. So that's very important to note.
Yeah.
Now, there's the odd place in Canada, perhaps West Coast, for example, where you get heavy rains and that type of thing. In some cases, if they're properly attached, it's not necessarily as bad. But a proper RV cover is still always by far the very best way to go. They will breathe, and they're specifically designed for the unique structure of an RV. It covers not only the roof, but the entire RV with the exception of the tires. And we could even talk about the ADCO cover Wind Plus
series.
It comes with free tire covers. And that's coming up here in a little bit. And also, there are some specific ways to measure your RV for an RV cover. And we would always recommend, whenever possible, drive your RV by your local RV Care dealer and have someone from the parts department come out and measure it and give you a recommendation. If not, please call the parts department at the RV Care dealer, and they'll guide you through how to measure it.
Yep. That's the best way. It's the old, measure twice, cut once, right? Kind of deal. Just always again. And this one here is a killer, right? This is the decals of your unit. And I want to get an expert here to talk to us a little bit about the resale value here in a second. But the sun is just killer, isn't it? I mean, on the human body, we're always creaming ourselves, putting UV3 protection on. Unfortunately, your rig is out there 24/7. Obviously, in the night you're good, But even in the winter, the sun is still pretty powerful if it's out in an area that the sun is beating on it all day. And that's where the depreciations of the unit sort of accelerates, because it's just not going to look as pristine as the day you bought it. So Art, you got a great tip here. Just if you can, right? Obviously, if you're accessible that you can get to it, why not just move it around a bit if you can?
Yeah, for people that aren't able to put or choose not to have a proper RV cover on their RV, if at all possible, try to, when you put it in storage, park it in a different position than in previous years, so that the fading and damage will kind of occur equally, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And if you park it in the same place facing the same direction year after year, you're going to have one or two sides that are have plenty of damage, and the others will still look pretty good. So keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like those guys that what do they call them? These weird suntans where all your arms are dark, and then you take your t-shirt off and you're as white as a ghost. It's all good. So let's go through some benefits here for you. So obviously it's going to maintain the look of your RV, so no fading during the season. Eliminates the black streets. Those are killers, aren't they? Those black streets. I always see guys out there just rubbing, like putting elbow grease to try to get the stupid things off. It reduces the maintenance cost, because obviously if you're covering it up, hopefully come the spring, you're not buying all these products to, like I say, to take off the dark marks. So it'll help you a little bit from that perspective. The fading, the resale value, portable storage. That's a good one, right, Art? Like it costs a bit of money to store these units. So what you call this, like a portable storage, or a?
Well, sure. In some cases, people, especially full timers, or people that just use their RV in seasonally. Yeah, quite often they're at some place where they want to fly home. For example, people that are down south, they want to fly home for Christmas. Well, you can put your RV in storage right down there, in Arizona or California, Texas, wherever you happen to be, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome. And then the resale value, because it's going to keep it looking newer longer. And what I want to do here is, I had a chance to talk specifically about that, because people don't realize, like, we all buy products for the benefits, and I just went through 5 of them for you. But I think the biggest benefit of all really is this. And I had a chance to speak to again another founder of RV Care. So 20 years now that he and his dealership, Ruston RV in Burlington, have been part of the RV Care Network founders, and he's got some really good information on firsthand experience on the resale value, how it increases it when you're properly taking care of your rig. So let's listen into a conversation I had with Don Sneed. I think it'll be really valuable to you. All right, so we want to welcome Don here this morning. So Don, I've already told our audience a little bit about you. Maybe you can just share with us a little bit about the evaluation process of a unit when they were coming into your shop.
Thanks, Derek. After all the years that we've been in the RV business, 45 plus, we've appraised thousands of RVs. I found it prudent to develop a sophisticated appraisal form that we use to evaluate an RV when it arrives at the dealership. This form had 90 points and sometimes some blank space to add additional comments. We looked at roof vents, roofs, corner seals, window seals, tires, appliances, and so on.
Wow. 90 points. I mean, that seems pretty extensive to me. So once you go through all these 90 points, you got this huge checklist. What are some of the next steps? I mean, are you at this point, the bearer of bad news to the customers?
Most often we are. You can tell almost at a glance whether this unit has had the service in the fall of the year. The number one problem that we had, of course, is we look at a value of the unit, and then we have to deduct off what we need to repair or replace. That adds to the value to bring it to the next customer. And of course, the one that bears the brunt of that loss is the customer that didn't do their maintenance.
Right. So when the unit came in and you saw this is a pristine unit, it sounds like it didn't happen that often. What stood out? What were some of the things they were doing that maybe other customers were not doing?
Well, the number one thing that we've come to recommend in later years here is that we get the customer to put a winter storage cover on the unit, whether you're storing it in a barn, whether you're storing it in outdoors, and so on. it immediately ensures that even though we've done some inspection work, that the leak that could happen won't happen, and it is the number one cause of devaluation of a unit.
Right.
It also, of course, protects from the UV light. The unit is going to sit for the whole 5 or 6 months of winter without attention, and it more or less ensures that when you uncover that unit in the spring, a light wash, it's going to look just as good as the day you bought it.
Right, right. Okay, so in terms of dollars, I know everyone's going to be interested in knowing what kind of dollars can they save or increase the value of their unit if they're taking care of it. I guess everyone is different, but can you give us some rough ideas in terms of costs?
Math on this is a unit devalues, of course, because of age and usage, but one that comes down to, say, a wholesale value of about $15,000. If there's $4,000 or $5,000 in water leaks, in failing to seal corners and roofs or do annual inspections, we see often that there's $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000 has to be spent to return the unit to a safe and usable condition. Other than that, there's all of the other things in the fall that you must do. Proper winterization preserves the water system, the sewage tank, wheel bearing inspections, and so on. Very inexpensive to do, but if you do not do them, they become really expensive at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that is some significant money. I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that. I think a lot of people realize that they got to maintain their car. It's just something that we do all the time. But when it comes to our RVs, it seems like a lot of people are just missing out on this. So I think this is great information for everyone to really take note of. It's a little bit like that old Fram oil filter TV commercial from years ago that says, you can pay me now or you can pay me later.
It's one of my favorites. And of course, the added bonus that we always stress to our customers is this, that not only is your unit going to have added value at the end of the day, but more importantly, it's going to deliver very reliable, good service when you go to use it every year. You get it out and you don't have the problems that an unserviced unit gives you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, Don, listen, I think this information was very helpful for our customers that are on the line with us here this morning. So again, want to thank you for your time here. And this information will be well served for everyone listening in. So thanks again.
My pleasure. Thank you, Derek.
Well, there you go. There was Don, right? Some awesome information. And, coming from a person that's got extensive experience in the industry, and no one wants to be the bearer of bad news. So again, it's all about the preventative side of the business. So Art, you gave us some tips and tricks. I want to go through these quickly. You've given us so much information here today. But again, our retail event that's happening now, you can go see Art's tips and tricks on there. Just some really high level stuff, simple stuff, but stuff that you need to consider. We had a lot of chat before on the rodent issue and all the different, I'll call them grandma's recipes as to how to take care of it. So Art's tip on that, pretty simple. The RV care dealer, depending on the region. Art, what did you say to me yesterday? You had no rats in Alberta?
That's what we like to brag about.
Yeah, what did I say? I said, well, I think you got some two-legged ones.
Yeah, we do. I think the prime message here is that there's a variety of different types of rodents geographically that are different in different parts of the country. So it's really difficult for you or me or anybody else for that matter, to come up with something that's going to work right across the country. So that's why it's really important. Check with your RV care dealer. They generally will have some suggestions to deal with whatever specific situation you have in your area relative to rodents and insects and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
and if I could just make a comment here, I believe the protocol for those to claim their prizes is that RV Care will email these folks and let them know how they can go about claiming their prizes. And just in case something slips through the cracks, info@rvcare.ca. If you send a quick email off to that email address, and if something slipped through the cracks, then we can get right back on it.
But I mean, they do have to go to the RV care dealer and pick them up, right? The closest RV care dealer?
They do.
Yeah, especially the ADCO cover. You want that expert advice. I think that comes with the prize, doesn't it? Like the food cover and some expert advice.
Yes.
That'd be all good.
And we could probably add a little disclaimer there that, if there's somebody that happens to be far, far away from an RV care dealer, I'm sure if they telephone the closest RV care dealer that we recommend, they could probably make arrangements over the phone or whatever for shipping or something anyway. Okay.
Yeah, sure. We're there to help.
Because we
All
don't
right.
have RV care dealers in every little town.
No, pretty close. We're working on it. I mean,
Yeah,
George is out there scouring the country. Like we're on it. We're on it.
Mhm.
All right. So talk to us a little bit about antifreeze.
Yeah, antifreeze. There's several different mixtures of antifreeze, and I would always recommend that for your particular RV and your particular geographical and climate location, check with your RV care dealer which is the better one for you.
Yep.
They're available sort of in a good, better, best thing, and
Sure.
of course I always like to use the best, but not everybody's willing to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah,
So here's a little inexpensive, I guess, pretty inexpensive, simple, but efficient.
yeah, they're just a few bucks, and just about all RV care dealers would carry them in stock. And not everybody does this, and it's not a necessity, but my preference, my personal preference, I like to blow all of the water out of my RV water system
Yeah.
before I pump the antifreeze through. Okay, I call it as a little bit of an insurance policy, basically. So I know that all of the water is evacuated from my water lines, so there's no worry about diluting the mixture.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's all good. Bypass kit.
Yeah, man. A lot of RVs nowadays come equipped from the factory with these, but unfortunately not all. So it's a series of valves and a hose that bypasses the cold inlet and the hot water outlet on the back of the water heater, so that you don't have to fill up the entire water heater with antifreeze, which is going to hold 6 gallons or more. You don't have to waste that antifreeze in there. Okay?
Yeah.
It just makes it quick and easy. So a permanent bypass kit, all the RV care dealers would carry them in stock.
Awesome. And I think we had a question before. Someone was talking about humidity and absorbing and crystals. So I think this is the perfect segue to answer that question, Art.
Yeah, and in certain parts of the country, this is almost a critical thing. It's almost critical and very inexpensive. I think it's calcium chloride crystals that you just drop into the top of this basket, and it absorbs moisture out of the environment. And besides UV rays, probably moisture is the next biggest issue that we can have causing problems in the interior of our RV. So.
Right.
And there's a variety of dehumidifying products. You could even use an humidifier or dehumidifier if you prefer, if you have access to electricity. But a very important note.
Yeah. So a question from me is, so this is going to absorb the humidity in the air, the crystals? Is that what it does?
Yes, absolutely.
So does that mean it creates water in the bottom of this little doohickey?
Yes. As the crystals absorb water, they sort of disintegrate and drop, and the water drops through into the lower part of it. So depending on the area, the frequency of topping it up with the fresh crystals varies in terms of timeline. So it could be anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, depending on where you are.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say for folks, rvcare.ca, keep a watch there for specials and promotions coming up, and follow us on social media. Lots of great information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Art, as usual, you've been an awesome host. I thank you. I couldn't have done this without you. Have an awesome end to your summer, right? Regardless of whether you're already packing her up or whether you're going to stay on for a few more months, and or if you're heading south. Be safe out there while you travel. And until we meet again, thank you so much for being with us here today.